Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and great to see you, Jonathan, even if it's only online, and delighted to see things we touched on, what might be possible, actually coming to fruition. But may I start, as I should, to thank Karen for your welcome to country and reminding us of the history. And today, I hope, is part of the reconciliation journey that we have. When I took over this job, I realised that Britain did not have an Indigenous engagement strategy. That was a failure on our part, and it was something I wanted to put in place. And as all of this flows from the space bridge that the UK and Australia signed, something I worked on in my first couple of years that we saw come to fruition 3 years ago, one of the things I said to my team was we must mainstream our engagement. We do not deal with First Nations as the other, but actually stakeholders in our relationship with Australia. What is the modern contemporary relevance, whatever the past and the history? How do we move forward in partnership together so that there is value, that we hear you, and actually something that Annette touched on, that we co-create and we co-develop and we move forward on a new journey with pathways that we equally share in partnership. So I hope today is an example of the realization of that dream and that ambition. And for my own learning, one of the first people I connected with when I first came was Craig Ritchie, who was then the CEO of AATSIS, which is the federal government body for the preservation and promotion of Indigenous language and culture, but also importantly of making sure that cultural items, sacred and secret, are able to return to country. So working with Craig and the team. But when I had my sessions with Craig, actually we talked about space. Because one of the things we were building up was actually work towards the space bridge. And he said, Vicki, you have to see the world through a different lens. You in Britain study the actual stars, but we look at the space in between and the depth and the stories and the knowledge that that tells us. We look beyond the stars. And that always stuck with me. So I'm delighted to be here because this is the sort of thing we want to see more of in the future. It's fantastic that Māori One has partnered with Fish to use space as part of the solution for the health of First Nations here. And I hope that it's not just what we do in WA, but that we do across Australia and the opportunity for growth on that front. And when I look at energy transition, I'm pleased to see many British companies with technology or indeed investment looking for partners amongst First Nations. This is the modern and relevant relationship that we want. It is a way to step away from a history that we must acknowledge, but build a future that makes change and brings the health and the prosperity equally to First Nations in this country. I'm glad to have played a small part in that journey. I hope to hand that ambition to be built on by my successor, who takes over in a few weeks' time. But we have a fantastic team here in Perth, who I know will continue to look for opportunities like this to facilitate the connections for the partnerships of the future. That as we go forward together, we take those steps in the journey together. So let me now acknowledge country, acknowledge the Whadjuk Nation, country in which we are meeting now. Their elders past, importantly present, with whom we hope to work yet more closely, and so that those of the future benefit from this new endeavour. We know, because we understand, this always was your country and always will be your country. And in the modern reality of Australia, we want to be your partner for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm going to get you to come up just in a minute, and we've just got a couple of gifts that we want to give to you. One is, these are message sticks that we want you to take back to your country. These have been painted by Polly Wilson, who's sitting at the back there, to take back the stories that you've heard from today and hold them dear to your heart and continue in the journey that you've got. We want to give you this, which is a recognition of the Aboriginal. This is our youngest entrepreneur. She created her company at the age of 11. When she was 9, she let people know at school she was Aboriginal and got bullied because of that. Instead of taking a negative view and it impacting significantly on her life, she decided, I'm going to be proud of my culture. And so she developed her own company, which Fish supports, and we sell lots of her products through our social enterprise, where now she says, I want every single Aboriginal kid in Australia to be proud of who they are, and I want every single kid in Australia to be proud of this culture that has been the longest living culture in Australia. We want to give you that to remind you of the resilience. We also want to give you a hat. If you were in Australia and you would wear this in the Kimberley, you would catch a barramundi with it. There are no barramundis in Scotland, so we want to give you that to wear with pride over there, and the stories of the journey of Fish. So those are gifts for you to take back with you. So thank you.